Good evening. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka workshop. We called this meeting and a welcome to our newly elected officials to provide some insight and guidance on the current status of the city, some major challenges that we have, and talk about some planning that we have moving forward. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Davis,
Present.
Commissioner Taylor, Vice Mayor Williams,
Present.
Mayor Pygott.
I am here. So I would like to first congratulate and welcome our newly elected officials. We have Vice Mayor Veronica Williams here, and also Commissioner John Teller. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka. I'm excited to be here before you today. Let's get started, Madam. Mr. Commissioner Teller, would you lead us in invocation?
God, we thank you for bringing us together one more time in the name. God, we ask that you come upon us in this meeting, that we may lead your people your way, God. Give us the wisdom and the knowledge in your name, we pray. Amen.
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 Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Public comments. Madam Clerk, could you review the protocols for public comments and state if we have any for this workshop agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, good evening. The public has an opportunity to provide public comments via email at publiccomments@opalockafl.gov, or they can request a link to join virtually via Zoom, or they have the option of appearing in person to speak before, to make the public comments before the commission. At this time, there are no public comments, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Moving on to our discussion item. Over the past few weeks, or a few months, in anticipation of this new election, we wanted to make sure that we provided an orientation to our newly elected commissioners. This is something that is very dear and near to myself. When I first got on board as a city commissioner, I did not have the opportunity to be oriented. And I was missing quite a few things. I didn't know where my parking space was until a few months into being an elected official, or I never got a shirt, had to get pins and business cards. So it was a lot of things that during my first time here as a commission experienced, and I wanted to make sure that we have some basic things like how to propose legislation, what are roles and responsibilities of our appointed officials, and really some best practices of being a leader. Many times when people get elected to office, there isn't really a guidebook, a rule book on how to be an elected official. And it's a very important job for elected official that is largely centered around the approval and the review and approval of legislation. But normally in public size, that's not generally the case, what people think that we do. And I think it's important that we take time to orient our officials and make sure that we are one of the most informed and prepared commissions. This is a young commission, and we have one of the greatest challenges of a municipal commission in the state of Florida in turning around this city. And we need to make sure that we are aware of those challenges and we plan for those. So as a part of that, I've asked for the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk to provide an orientation. 2 years ago, there was a full-blown few orientations and public presentations by each of the departments, the city attorney's office, the city clerk's office, and there's legislation coming before us later on today to make that a law in the city of Opa-locka. So as we start to move forward, I'm probably going to ask some questions later on just to make sure that we got everything to move this city forward. But before we get into that, I want to pass it over to the city manager so he can begin his discussion about strategic planning and the four major challenges. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. Commissioners, Vice Mayor. The agenda that we currently have with stating that we'll be doing the strategic planning, we're not going to go right into that right now. We want to skip over that, which was A, strategic planning on our agenda, and move right into the four major challenges. So the first person I'm gonna have come make a presentation is gonna be Ariel Austin. And he will talk about some of the things dealing with our roads, streets, milling, and resurfacing.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. My name is Aria Austin. I am responsible for the Division of Capital Improvement and Public Works and Utilities. And capital improvement is our department that addresses all of the capital improvements citywide. Public Works is tasked with an Army's job with the squadron to comply with those tasks. It consists of building maintenance, roads and streets, beautification, and in the public utilities side, we have wastewater, stormwater, and drinking water meters and maintenance division. Today, I'm going to review the projects that we had pending from 2020 and the projects we have to ramp up in 2021. We started last year with our sidewalk improvement initiative. This project is in progress. It's 2.6 miles of sidewalk. The first area is being addressed in the town center area, currently around the school on Fisherman area. The sidewalk beautification aspect of this project will come after the first installation of sidewalks are completed. Milling and resurfacing is in progress. We milled approximately 1 mile of roadway so far, and we expect to wrap this project up in mid-February. Last year, we were tasked with completing 139th Street. It was in deplorable condition. Now it's a drivable roadway. 141st Street was also completed. Our pothole initiative is ongoing. We have addressed approximately 95% of the potholes in the city of Opa-locka. The majority of remaining potholes will be addressed with the milling and resurfacing initiative, in addition to the new projects that will be coming on board to address our flooding concerns. Another aspect of our four major challenges is the sanitary sewer system, which is governed under a consent agreement. We had 4 stations remaining out of compliance. One of these 4 stations have been successfully relined and tested, and we are pending a decision from Durham to move forward with the testing of the remaining 3 pump stations to bring us out a moratorium in that aspect of the consent agreement. In Shabandi Village, we are in the process of, although it's not one of our challenges, I wanted to state it, replacing the HVAC system in this facility. That project is in process. Stormwater Master Plan Phase 1. Although the contract is moving forward, as you could see, we are pending contract execution to really ramp up on that project. SACS Phase 3 testing, like I previously said, Pump Station 5 has been completely tested, and we're just waiting for DERM approval of that project. Carroll Lane and 127th Street, this is one of our challenges. The assessment of the design for constructability of that roadway is now being assessed by 300 Engineering. Their timeline on this project is approximately 4 months. They're moving forward. However, we are pending a contract approval on that item. The Ingram Park relighting project is pending a contract approval. Ingram Park restroom project. That's weird. It's in permitting phase, and the fleet management roofing project isn't also in its permitting phase. Historical City Hall, the contract is on board. However, we're in the project, the contract execution phase of that item. The next page on your package shows the miles of sidewalk that we have in the city. The red outline depicts the area where we are going to be addressing, with new sidewalks. The next page shows exactly the 2.6 miles that I spoke of, delineated there, where the sidewalks project has begun. Next slide depicts our milling and resurfacing initiative. The yellow item depicts the area that the county, Miami-Dade County, was responsible for, and that was 6 miles of roadway. We've completed 10 miles of roadway, and in phase 4, which we are now in phase 4 of our initiative, we expect to address 6 miles of roadway. The city, the total miles of roadway within the city limits, it's 40 miles of linear roadway, and we expect to address all of it within the 5-year period. Photographs show our previous work on Northwest 139 and subsequently 141 Street. The next page depicts our pothole diagram. The majority of these areas have been addressed. Next slide depicts where we were in 2016 with our pump stations, which are one of our major challenges. Now that is down to 3 dots that needs to be addressed, as depicted on the next page. Our 2021 projects, sidewalk repair. This is not installation of sidewalks. These are our sidewalks, which we had a third-party company come into the city. We addressed the town center area where sidewalks may be lifted that in a way that it could cause a tripping hazard. We will be performing those repairs. This item is pending a contract execution. Pump station number 6 is one of our pump stations that is not in moratorium. However, to prevent that aspect of the station, we intend to line this gravity system in fiscal year 21. to be in compliance again. We are going to continue with our new sidewalk rollout, and that's an ongoing item. On 30th Avenue, also known as One Road, we are going to be addressing the swale area to mitigate our current flooding concerns on that roadway until such time that it's going to be finally addressed by the stormwater master plan and prioritization of our stormwater initiative. And that's right below there. There's going to be phase 2. This plan was split into two phases, one funded by fiscal year 20 and the second funded by fiscal year 21. And they're both pending contract execution. The Cairo Lane constructability project is pending a determination from the engineering firm that's currently doing the review of the design. The Glorietta Apartments was just awarded by the commission to address the detention pond and flooding concerns in that area. We recently awarded the contract to one of our bidded professional consultants, and that's right now going through the contract execution phase. Sanitary sewer modeling, another requirement for the Durham consent agreement, will be coming forward for commission approval. We were provided with a schedule of work to be performed, a scope of work, and we will be bringing that scope forward for approval so this project could proceed. Citywide beautification is in development right now. We are currently addressing the illegal dumping, and other items are to follow, including tree plantings on Purvis Avenue and elsewhere in the city. The bus bench and shelter contract, we are in negotiations with the vendor that was awarded the bid for the city of Oakland Park. And we will be bringing that to the commission as soon as we have an amenable contract to bring forward. Railroad crossings, we were just apprised by the Department of Transportation that the railroad crossings are the city of Opa-locka's responsibility, although that facility is owned and operated by CSX. I am awaiting South Florida Regional Transportation Services to provide us with an estimated cost for the repairs of these crossings. At first guess, they are projecting the cost to be $1 million per crossing for repairs. Northwest 131st Street. This is a initiative between the city of Opa-locka and Miami-Dade County, funded by CDBG grant. CDBG is requesting that the city develop specifications to put this project out to bid. I have obtained the scope of work for this project, and we will be bringing it forward to commission for approval. The Burlington Canal project was previously bidded and awarded. This project is pending remobilization, and we are discussing it with the city manager. That's all I have to present at this time. I'm open to any questions or concerns you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Really appreciate you taking the time to give us this orientation. I wish these beautiful slides, which kind of brings home A lot of the stuff that you bring were available to our public online. But I hope that we can share this over time on social media, our website, so people can see the progress and the work that we're having, especially when it comes to our road projects, to be able to look at this map of the city and see the map of the city and look at where our problem areas have been, and to see the work that has been done by the city of Opa-locka and Miami-Dade County to remill over 15 miles of streets. It's heartening. It is good to see that, and including the potholes, the map of the potholes, and how many of them we've addressed too. Those are the things that our public and a lot of people who want change in the city, who've been addressing, complaining about these issues, would like to see. So I would love to see more of that. With that, is there any questions or comments for Mr. Austin?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Burke?
I have one. Mr. Austin,
Yes, sir.
on, did I hear you say now that the railway crossings
Yes.
belongs to the city?
That's what I am trying to see if we could come up with any contracts when it was first installed that put the city as a responsible party for those crossings. But as it stands now, the Florida Department of Transportation is saying we are the owners and we are responsible for the repairs and maintenance. Although we cannot perform said repairs and maintenance, it has to be performed by South Florida Department of Transportation. We are responsible for the cost.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was pretty shocked at that myself. Commissioner Davis?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Mr. Austin. I know that we had an entity come in. I think it was FDOT that came in and gave a presentation on, I believe, just how to beautify those our railroad crossings. I know that they were pretty much saying that they would fund the beautification of it. Has that changed, that part?
That has not changed. Although they said they completed the task, they have started. It's going to be new pavement markings is the beautification aspect. We are going to try to see if we could get them to increase the width of the sidewalks leading up to the crossings and any beautification efforts outside of that.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question related to the Burlington Canal project. I guess it's pending remobilization, so that project is pretty much.
The project was demobilized a few years ago due to the city cash strapped. And we are trying to remobilize that project without going back out to bid again, because the contractor has committed to holding the price to the original bid, which was done almost 5 years ago. So we are hopeful that we are able to remobilize without putting the project back out to bid.
Okay. And also just in general, our waterways, is that related to the beautification? Like, are we considering that? I know we mentioned illegal dumping, tree planting, and those sort of things in addition to the capital improvements to our parks, but have we?
Waterways are a part of our beautification effort, especially we are in talks with the Miami-Dade County. They are responsible parties for the cleaning of our canals. However, they're taking the stance that cleaning is relegated to removal of green growth and not debris. So we are looking to either renegotiate the contract or go with another vendor for cleanliness of our canals.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Austin.
Thank you.
Through the mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you so much, Mr. Austin, for this presentation. I can tell you, being new on the dais, having more insight into projects pending and forthcoming is much appreciated. I'm wondering for the fiscal year 21 projects, are the bulleted points, are they in order of projects that are happening? Or is there a way that we can get an order of projects that are top priority that will happen in some type of succinct order of projects that are forthcoming, that will go through before others in some type of order so that we know we can like a check off?
We will provide them in a prioritized manner. Right now, these were just lists of
Of course.
projects. They're not in any succinct order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was an excellent question, Vice Mayor. As a commission, one of the things that I think has helped in moving a lot of these projects forward is us as elected officials during our meetings with the manager to continue to ask about where they are they in budget, what are their challenges, and in particular myself, I've been focused on this flooding with the 4 major challenges. So the storm water master plan, where we are with that. I ask that question at almost every single meeting I have operational concerning operations with the city manager, including Glorietta Apartments, my Durham consent agreement, and moving forward, I'm definitely going to put more emphasis and focus on the city beautification and also our railway crossings. But as y'all can see, this is a lot. It's a lot of projects, a lot of moving parts. And many times in our small little times, we all work with professionals to meet. It is helpful when we're able to ask these questions on the projects that are near and dear to us so that management knows that we as the elected body are very concerned with these and are moving them forward. So as we go through strategic planning, let's make a note of those things that are interest to us. And over the next few weeks, a few months, a few meetings, we can start to flush out what's going to be our priorities as elected officials, and we can probably give reports to our constituents in that way. But that's what I'm hoping that we can do to make sure that we hold ourselves and this government accountable to getting this stuff done in an excellent fashion. So with that, is there any other questions or comments for Mr. Austin?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Manager, you still have the floor.
I'm sorry, what else?
Speaking to the mic.
Thanks, I'm sorry. Sorry about it. Thanks, Bob, for coming. I guess you heard me through the echo because I didn't have the mic
Not a
on.
problem.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, Bob Anathan, Budget Administrator. I'm going to take a quick detour. The discussion on railroad crossings came up. That's not unique to Opa-locka. Other cities where I've been, it's always been the city that's picked up the tab on it. So there's no picking on Opa-locka. That's just a standard thing, at least in the few cities that I've been involved in. So it is what it is, unfortunately. The intent for the next couple minutes is to just expose you to the thought process that lay behind the development of the FY21 budget and also the 5-year plan. And I'll spend a moment telling you about the significance of the 5-year plan. This presentation is not going to be at 40,000 feet. It's going to be at 140,000 feet. I'm just going to give you a couple thoughts on each one. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to share with you some links where you can really get down and dirty with the data. Or if you don't like typing in all that information, my email address is there. Send me your email address if you'd like to get access to these various publications, and I will send you the link on it. So again, this is just a real high-level overview of where we've been and where we're going and where we'd like to go. I put on the dais two packages, one having to do with this presentation, and then a second one on the operational audit, because that certainly is part of the challenges that we're dealing with. So I'm going to deal with the budget, the 5-year plan first, and then we can segue right into the operational audit. The operational audit, I believe you all received copies of that on Monday. Maybe it was Tuesday, I'm not sure. So the purpose tonight really is not to drag you through it, because it's kind of like reading a telephone book. But to the extent that you've had a chance to look at it, and if you have any questions, I'm going to do my best to either get you the answer now, or if I can't do it, I'll certainly get back to you with the information you're looking for. So having said that, again, I'm going to start with the budget and so forth. So that's going to be what I think was the top packet on each of your desks. Before we get into 21, just going to very briefly talk about FY20. FY20 was really going to be an effective year in terms of what the city had to get done. We'll have a very brief discussion about fund balances. The city fund balances are reserves. It's what you have available for a rainy day fund. The city was really going to make a major progress on improving that number in FY20. With the pandemic, the world has changed a little bit. I will tell you that for the most part, I think by the time you look at the various relief programs, the city is not going to be hurt in a major way because of the pandemic. That's a financial statement. Obviously, in terms of personal impact, humanitarian impact, it's a major impact on the city. But financially, the city will be set back a little bit by it, but I think in general, we're going to find out that the damage was not that great. So what we saw, I'm going to do a look back just the year that's just been completed. If you want to follow on your package, it's the FY20 overview. And the city has for a long time, as I think you're all aware, had a very low tax base. FY20 was a turnaround year. I think at this point, the new commissioners and vice mayor have heard about Amazon. Amazon completed the work in the distribution center that they have, I think, slightly to the west. That increased the tax base by $188 million and put another close to $2 million into the property tax stream each year. Really is the vehicle for turning the city around, because I'm going to share some other things with you, but that was really kind of the launching point to, I think, where the city is really back on track for a strong fiscal recovery. I should point out, by the way, the presentations on the plan, or I'm sorry, on the budget and the 5-year plan, each one were about 3 hours. So you really are just getting a real view at the very top of this. So we'll go on from there. Within the presentation, I noted that the city, when you look at the improvement in the property tax base for the last several years, put aside the Amazon investment, it has always been the top of the 30-some municipalities in the county. This city for the last several years has been certainly in the top 20%, and 1 or 2 years actually led the pack, and that was not because of Amazon. This has become a very attractive area. Amongst other reasons, the property values are very low. It's starting to attract people. And by the way, with Amazon here, now everybody wants to be in the area because they want to be able to service Amazon. And Amazon being here really is kind of a seal of approval that brings the other people in. So we saw a tremendous growth in tax base in FY20, and we'll look at FY21 in a moment. But that, as I said, I think is really the turnaround. On this page, I've noted the fact the millage rate is high. It's extremely high. High as it can be is 10. It's 9.8 right now. There's a minor offset to it because when you figure out what property tax is the millage rate times the property value. Property values are low. So it's a problem for the city, but it's not quite the problem it might be if we had high taxable values. So that is something that you'll see in the 5-year plan that has got to come down, and the 5-year plan certainly calls for it. The organization is very skinny. When you look back in the budget books for FY15, it was about 100%. Well, let me say it the other way. We're about 40% less now than we were in FY15. So it's been a very skinny organization. The budget for that we're in right now, FY21, certainly builds on it, and FY20 was certainly lean as well. So and we're getting the job done. That's the good news. I mentioned before fund balance. I'm going to show you a page a little bit further on. For the primary fund that we worry about, and by the way, if I use terms that you're not familiar with, certainly the new commission members and so forth, please stop me, because otherwise it's really not a good use of your time. But the general fund, which is the primary source of funding activity for most city activities other than water, sewer, and stormwater, had a negative fund balance in the last audit that was completed, negative $4 million. What was going to happen in FY20 was really going to bring that up to close to break even. I think with the pandemic, it's going to be a little less. I'll show you a graph on that a little bit later. Anyhow, FY20 really, what allows you to improve your fund balance is having more income than you expend. And as I said, my forecast previously is about $2.5 million improvement, which gets us close to break even. The FY20 numbers are still being sorted out, but I think we're certainly going to be in that ballpark. The other important thing that was done in FY20, if I'm still on the FY20 overview, is even with the reduction in spending, the holding back of staff and so forth, continue to make major investments in the city's infrastructure.
So you're gonna put your mic close, speak into the mic a little
Oh,
more.
I'm sorry. I can take off my mask and I think that may help a little bit. Never can do too much for the city. I'm going to move on to the next page. Some of the things that were initiated in FY20, you can see on the next page. You've got 2 master plans that have gotten underway. CRA has initiated a downtown master plan to really provide some direction to where the development of the downtown should go. And also, as was brought up by the Public Works Director, the stormwater master plan study was begun, both of which are horribly important for the future of the city. Just a couple further notations in terms of what some of the city's issues are. For the new commissioners, and I think you've heard this point, we are obligated to the county for past water and sewer charges by close to $5.5 to $6 million. And at the moment, we're paying about $1.2 million each year. That is a burden on the water and sewer fund in terms of how those funds could otherwise be used. Additionally, I think everybody's heard about the red light cameras. We receive certain receipts from the red light camera service firm. A portion of that is intended to be passed on to the state. In prior years, for whatever reason, it was not done. There's now about 2.7 that we are holding that was originally intended to be forwarded onto the state. That is under discussion at the state level as to just how that should be addressed. So it's an open issue at the moment. There is a problem. As you know, the county has picked up the billing of probably 98% of the city's water customers at this point. County has backed off on collection rates. So even though the billings are extremely good, probably in the $12 to $13 million range, they're only collecting about 75%. This could be a problem for us going forward because the budget and also the 5-year plan assumed that we were going to really collect the lion's share of those billings. So that is an issue on the horizon. It has not really been fully fleshed out, has not been discussed in great detail with the county yet, but it is a problem. And as I've said before, the pandemic has impacted the city, certainly from a humanitarian point of view. Financially, I think we're going to come out pretty much whole on it. Having said that, that is a real quick summary of the year just gone by. As indicated, it's a work in progress. Numbers still have to be sorted out for various reasons. And hopefully with the next 2 months, we can give you a much firmer insight as to what FY20 looked like. Okay, going forward, in the budget year we're in, which started 1 October, continue, even though there's a pandemic that was underway, the values for the property tax base were established January of last year before the pandemic took effect. So we did get about a 7% growth, which again puts us in top 20% of all the cities in the county. So as I said before, certainly a place where people want to come and they're driving the prices up to be here. I'll throw a little additional fact on that. City's tax base is only about 27% residential. So what you're seeing the growth in, for the most part, is on the commercial property. So it's not so much the resident properties that are going up in value, although I'm sure they're going up as well. But because so much of it is commercial, this is where the real growth is coming from. The millage rate in the FY21 budget is still at 9.8. You'll see in the 5-year plan that the goal is to get it down to 9.45 by the time we get to FY25. And I certainly think that's doable. But for this budget, it remains at 9.8. As I've alluded to a couple times already, this budget probably has more revenue uncertainty than any budget I've worked on. And for my gray hair, I've worked on quite a few of them. Had to really be very, very conservative in the numbers that we put in, made everything come together. The objective of the plan was really not to lose momentum in terms of maintaining what I'm calling the reserves. So at the moment, you've got a very conservative revenue plan. There will be, as the revenue takes shape for this year, as we get a better understanding of what it's really about, I'm sure we're going to come back with some mid-course corrections, probably advocating various programs that we may have put on the side when the budget was put together. Continuation of the same skinny organization, very little in the way of compensation increases that was driven by whatever was in the various bargaining unit agreements. That at the moment is primarily with your police force. Even with the uncertainty revenue, as you can see at the bottom of this page, a still continued investment in the city's infrastructure. Government funds, which is basically general funds, 1.4 million. Water, sewer, 3.4, and stormwater really starting to take off in terms of addressing some of the problems the Public Works Director talked about before. Continuation of the FY21 budget overview on the next page. Certainly time to improve the looks of the city. There's a beautification project in place, and certainly there's one of the areas where beautification will come into play is going to be in the parks, and there is 150,000 at the moment budgeted for a parks master plan to start to improve the parks along with the rest of the city. There will also be on schedule this year, CRA master plan update, or I'm sorry, a CR plan, let me rephrase that, a CRA plan update, which will, the original plan was booked in about 2012. This will have 8 more years of experience, a different environment, and it'll provide new direction in terms of where the CRA wants to go. We're going to be somewhat aggressive in grant seeking, much more so than the past. You got some new leadership, Parks and Rec, Police. I still don't have the leadership in finance. That's been a problem, but hopefully that can be resolved sooner or later. And as mentioned before, once the revenue picture becomes a little clearer, we'll probably come back with what I'd call a mid-course correction, make recommendations as to where else the city may choose to spend money, assuming that we see the revenues a little stronger than what was booked. I'm going to skip the next 3 pages. They're there for your reading pleasure if you want, or next 2 pages actually. I've gone to the page that has a graph on it. This is what I've alluded to before. This is the general fund reserves or fund balance. Fund balance is the official name. The easier to understand is reserves. You can see in FY18, it's actually negative 4.0 million. The objective, according to the Government Finance Officers Organization, GFOA, is really at least 2 months of reserves. I think Commissioner Taylor, you said your experience may even be 3 months, 25%. For a moment, we need to get it back to at least 16%. That would be about $3 million. If it had not been for the pandemic, I think we would have been break even in the current year, or I'm sorry, in FY20, and actually been positive for FY21. As you can see on the graph that I presented here, we've actually plateaued it slightly below, again, being very conservative given the uncertainty with the revenue. And again, please, if any questions, if it's not making any sense, please stop me. At the moment, I will move on to the 5-year plan just to cover a couple issues there. The 5-year plan is one of the key ingredients to be allowed to depart from the financial emergency, allowed to depart from control by the state, day-to-day control that is. The city had submitted a plan previously. It had come back with some reservations. We resubmitted a new plan as of the latter part of August this year. was accepted without any recommendations for changes, and we were told to go ahead and make it happen. So that's good news, and I'm going to give you a few of the bullets on that just to make you aware what was in there. Again, the second year of the 5-year plan, FY22, assumed a pause in the growth of real estate. That was what we knew in the springtime or the early summertime. In all honesty, it looks like the real estate market continues to be reasonably strong. So there may well be some upside when we get the the database for next year. As I mentioned before, the millage rate is clearly too high. One of the 5-year plan objectives is certainly to pull it down. The plan for the moment has a millage rate in FY25 of 9.45 mils. The organization that was in the 5-year plan is a skinny organization all the way through, all the way to FY25. As I mentioned before, the general fund balance, or the reserves, if you will, grows to about 4.3 in the 5-year plan, which is about $1 million over our target number of 3.1 million actually. Other key ingredients of the 5-year plan included restoration of eligibility to participate in the state revolving fund program. This is for utilities. It's a low interest rate program. It has a lot of administrative requirements to it, but it's a great source of funds. At the moment, the city's not eligible to participate in the program until we have 1 or 2 clean audits and also complete various programs that have been funded by the program in the past and have not yet been completed. Objective is to regain that eligibility, and right now the plan calls for being able to do that in FY22. You have a major investment program, as is outlined on this page. Close to 10 million in governmental funds, with certainly close to 2 million related to upgrading your parks and recreation system. Water sewer, 21 million, addressing a lot of problems there. And stormwater, which has been said too many times now, is probably one of the most pressing problems in the city. So this will not solve everything, but if this investment program is carried out over the next 5 years, it certainly will take a large bite out of the apple. 2 other things. The CRA is the way the CRA is funded. The revenue almost continually grows, and they have more than $1 million that are going to be budgeted for improvements in the city over each of the next 5 years. One last thing on that, and I think you'll see it again on tonight's agenda. Certainly recognizing the city needs to come in the 21st century in terms of technology. IT is leading a drive to certainly modernize the way we do business. A couple last bullets on it. I'll move on to the next page. Certainly a high functioning organization financially, and I'm sure Jerry's going to talk that in a lot of detail. Public Works Director made reference to the restoration of streets and sidewalks, and I also refer to the parks and money that will be invested in parks and recreation system. Last page on this presentation is hopefully I've whetted your appetite. On the last page, you can see links to both the budget book. If you want to print it out, that's about 250 pages, so caution. The 5-year plan is about 150 pages. If you don't feel like typing in all of these various characters to get to it, at the bottom is my email address. Please send me your email if you'd like to have access to these links, and I'll respond immediately so that you'll have links. If you want the city to print out those books for you, we've certainly done that for the commission that was in place up till November, and do that as well. Also, on the same request as I said, there were presentations for both the budget presentation and also the 5-year plan. They're somewhat lengthy. If you'd like to have those, I will also send those to you, and you have my phone number. I am certainly available to walk you through it, to tell you what points we were trying to make. So unless there's any questions, that's all I intend to do on both the budget and the 5-year plan.
Thank you, Mr. Anathan. Appreciate you giving that bird's eye view of our budget and 5-year recovery plan. This is a very important conversation that we must have and continue to have. We are under financial oversight, and how we manage our budget and we get out of this financial crisis is key and critical. And those at the state make sure they watch us make sure that we are asking these questions and making sure that we hold this government accountable. And Mr. Anathan has been amazing at getting our budget together and the submission of this 5-year recovery plan. Um, with that, I do want to make sure we emphasize and highlight the beauty of this city and the special place that we have. Mr. Anathan touched on it when he spoke about the attractiveness of this city and how we have one of the highest property tax growth rates in the county. I've been doing that for a number of years. So this is a city that is on the move. At least once a month, I hear about large investments that developers are coming in, buying up our industrial areas and building. So we are a city that is growing. We have a lot of potential, and how we manage that tax base to develop these ideas is critical. One of the fundamental aspects of this success that we've been having over these past 4 years on the real changes that we see with our roads and streets and those things was making sure that things get properly allocated in the budget. And it's a very important component to being an elected official is knowing that budget and making sure that things are in line. So I've taken a lot of time with Mr. Anathan and going through this budget, and it has helped me tremendously as an elected official being here. So thank you, Mr. Anathan, for giving this bird's eye view and being so thorough with your reports to the commission. With that, floor is open for any questions or comments. All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Anathan.
Thank you, Robert. Next, thank you very much. Next, we're gonna have up Ms. Lazar, Jerry Lazar, our financial consultant. We'll go over our finance and our financial audit.
Good evening, everyone, Mayor, Vice Mayor, my peers and guests. So I'm going to focus, since Aria, Mr. Austin, and Mr. Anathan provided really good perspective on growth and where we are from a public infrastructure perspective. I'm going to focus more on the financials in 4 different areas. I'm going to talk a little bit about our debt. That'll be the first one. The second will be on financials. The third will be compliance, and the fourth will be opportunity. So with respect to debt, I want to say that the city is definitely in a good place compared to where it has been in the past with respect to the debt. I'll talk about a few of them that we have. The first debt I'm going to touch on is the Miami-Dade County debt. It was $5.5 million back in 2017. However, the city signed a contract with Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer so that they could start billing the city's customers. And as a result of billing the city's customers, they would take a principal and interest payment to pay down the $5.5 million debt that the city incurred, which was related to past water billings, Durham and parks, and all sorts of different types of expenditures. So now that the city has transitioned their water billings to Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer, they have taken approximately $1.2 million from the water receipts that the city has billed, which has paid down the $5.5 million debt. So I wanted to basically share that that's a good thing, right? Before we had not been paying anything on the $5.5 million, and now the city's paid at least $1.2 million of the debt. The second debt that I wanted to touch on is new debt. We're going to call that Miami-Dade County new debt. That is related to the same contract that we signed with Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer back in 2017. In the same breath, we also shared with them, once they take over our billing, if they see that there's some infrastructure needs with respect to replacing water meters, they could do that. And in replacing the water meters, we had estimated that it would be between 1.5 and 2.2 million. As of, I think a few months ago, they shared with us that the bill is probably 2.5 million. There was a call earlier this week with the mayor briefing the new commissioner, Gilbert, for District 1, that the city may want to have some discussion related to the $2.5 million debt in terms of seeing if we could get that negotiated. But that is debt that will come on live, and we have not started making any payments. Part of the discussion now is that they want to do an MOU with the city to start establishing payment terms. And so it's a great conversation right now to see if that's something that the city can negotiate. The third debt that I want to talk about is the red light camera. I know Mr. Anderson touched a little bit on it. The city had not paid the red light camera debt that was due to the state of Florida back in 17. It was about 3.2 million effective this year, and a little bit, I think last year there were some payments made as well. The city was not current with the state with the red light camera debt. However, as of fiscal 20, we did make a payment of about 864,000. So we're current now on the current portion. However, the old debt is still outstanding. I think it's about 2.2 million. And I know there's been some conversations with the state to see whether or not that can be negotiated. However, I believe that's something that you guys are going to be working on with your state officials. Two more that I want to touch on is the 2015 A and B bond. The 2015 A and B bond is specifically related to the purchasing of the building, City Hall. The city is in compliance with paying the debt. We have a monthly payment of about 43,000 that we pay on time with no problems. The other debt that the city has, and that's with City National Bank. As a result of that, I did want to touch on something else. The City National Bank had been withholding about 5.5 million of the city's money of excess funds as a result of the city going into financial emergency. Earlier this year, the city manager's office and the attorney were able to negotiate a settlement, and they allowed us to release the funding. So the city did receive $2.5 million from monies that were being held by the bank because we were in financial emergency, and the other 2.5 million was used to pay down some of the 2015 A and B bond, which I think was a great thing to happen in fiscal 20. The last debt that I want to touch on is a 2011 A and B bond. It looks like that bond was for capital improvements and projects in the past. The city's current with that as well. The bank is BB&T that we're using, and we have no problems with that. Other minor debt, I would say, would be vendor debt. So that's debt to the suppliers and manufacturers that do work for the city. Currently, because of the financial emergency, the state is involved in the process with the city paying its vendors. And so it's not always paid timely to a lot of the vendors, but again, it's the extra security and controls that the city has over monitoring the payment of vendors through the state that's driving a lot of that. But I will say things have gotten better over the last few months. However, that definitely has been a problem in the past. So that's my highlight on debt overall for the city. The second point that I wanted to touch on was financial. Mr. Anderson touched a lot on growth and where we're going and projections and sort of and forecasts into the future. So I'm going to leave that alone. And I'll just highlight on some of the major revenue streams that the city has. One is Avalorm. Avalorm is our property tax base. I will say for this fiscal year, I think it's estimated in the budget to be about 10 or 11 million. As of November and December, that's when Miami-Dade County starts to pay the Avalorm tax payments to the cities, and we've received at least half of the payments already. Actually, today we received about 4.4 million. So we are starting to receive our flow for property tax dollars. So we get a lot of our money up front. So it's really important that we manage it over time so that it can last over the next 12 months out during fiscal 21. A portion of that Avalorm payment goes to the CRA, which Mr. Anthony kind of shared. The city gives a portion to the CRA, and the county also gives a portion to the CRA. That was something that was highlighted in the operational audit as a finding because the city had not been transferring over the CRA's portion. I will say as a result of today, we've transferred over the city's portion to the CRA as well as the county's portion. So we are in compliance with submitting the CRA's portion of both county and city payments to them for Avalorm. The second major revenue source that I wanted to highlight on a general fund side is the state revenue share. So that's where we get local option gas tax, sales tax, and other types of state revenue shares that all cities get a portion of. We're in compliance in getting that. We get that on a monthly basis. But why I want to highlight is that if we're not in compliance with the audit, that's where the state has an opportunity to be able to withhold some of those fundings. And back in 2018, they withheld about 1.6 million of the city's funding. And so that's why the urgency of getting the audit done is so important, so that we don't lose that $2.2 million in funding that we get from the state revenue sharing. The second thing the third revenue that I want to touch on is that we do get some utility tax and communication sales tax from the state as well, but we don't really get to keep the bulk of it because it's pledged for the bonds, the 2011 and 2015 A and B bond. That's why we're able to pay it on time. As soon as that money comes in, we transfer it to an account and make sure that we pay the debt. The fourth portion of the revenues that I wanted to highlight was our water and sewer. I know Mr. Anathan talked a little bit about that. So we've transferred the water and billing to Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. The billings have been about 13, I think it was like 13.8 million in billings from Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. However, we've only collected 10 million of the 13. So there's a little bit of a collection problem. It looks like we've collected about 72% of the billings just for fiscal year 20. I think COVID probably has a lot to do with it, and in addition to the fact that we've just transferred over to Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer, and so they're trying to get the hang of the whole billing process with us as well. In the same breath, we also have about 7.2 million in outstanding revenues for water billing. Obviously, this is as a result of the past water billings that the city has not been able to collect from a lot of its customers. And so we've done some analysis of that debt, because in preparing for the fiscal 19 audit, the auditors usually want to know how much of that is collectible, right? So we're starting to do some analysis of it, and our number looks like about 4 million maybe uncollectible out of the 7.2, but we're still doing some analysis, and we're going to figure that out and work with the auditors to see what we can agree upon in terms of what is going to be written off. The third thing that I want to talk about was compliance. So that's dealing with the audits. We have three major areas for audits. One is financial, one is compliance, one is operational. I know Mr. Anathan touched on the operational audits and provided a listing of where we are with the operational audits, so I won't dive too much into that. The financial audits, the city had been behind in its financial audits. We are current with 15 through 18 fiscal years. However, fiscal 19 is outstanding. It is past due. The state's Joint Legislative Audit Committee sent a letter to the city back in October, basically stating that the audit needed to be done or submitted by December 7th. Obviously, we understood that that was not something that could be done by December 7th, which was this past Monday. And so the city and the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, which is JLAC, met, and we had some discussion by phone to talk about what was a realistic timeframe to submit the fiscal 19 audit. And we agreed that March 15th would be the day that we would submit the March 15th audit. We had an audit committee meeting for the first time for the city last Friday, where we discussed game plan in terms of which vendor we were going to select. And we wanted to make a recommendation from staff to go with the existing audit firm, Anthony Brunson, PA, as a result of their past experience and performance and understanding of the city, in order to be able to get the audit to be done timely by March 15th. The second audit that I want to talk about was a compliance audit that the city gets with Miami-Dade County for the surtax funds. That's the half-cent penny tax that they assessed some years back, where the city gets the city's allocated about $600,000 to $800,000 in surtax funding for both transportation and transit, because the city had declared a financial emergency and had not been spending its funds in the correct manner with Miami-Dade County with respect to the surtax funds. They actually put a freeze on the funds to the city and would not allow us to get those monies until we would go through an audit. So earlier this year, we finished the 15, 16, and 17 audit, and we received about $900,000 in funding. We just finalized the 18 audit with them, and there's a draft report, and we're expecting for them to release about $261,000 in funding from the surtax audit. We're just waiting to finalize the report with staff, and then they will bring it to their board's attention so that they can recommend the release. Operational audit, I said I won't touch on so much because I know Mr. Anathan talked on that. The fourth and final area I wanted to touch on is more opportunity. So the opportunity I see for the city is really grants. I think when I look back at 2010, I did some research about, the past audits. You could see that the city had a significant source of revenue from grants. And as a result of the financial emergency, they have not been able to apply for a lot of grants. Um, a lot of the requirements for some grants is you having to submit your financial audits, them going through ratios and calculations. As a result of us being behind in our audits, we don't normally get a lot of points in that area for the financial piece. So I think being the ability to be able to finalize the 19 audit and then jump into the 20th audit will allow the city to successfully pursue grants. The two major things that we have open right now is the FEMA grant because of the COVID-19. And I know Mr. Anathan is working on that, but I'll speak more on the CARES Act portion. Miami-Dade County was awarded funding for the CARES Act, and they offered funding in two phases for cities. One is the operating portion and one is programmatic. For the operation portion, we've submitted about 377,000 in reimbursements to the county, which they're reviewing, and we hope to submit maybe another 150 before the end of the year. And with respect to the programmatic piece, that's where the city was awarded the $2.1 million for the housing and the grocery gift card program. We had split the funding between both the housing and the grocery gift card program. But one of the things that we're seeing is that our city does not seem to be having an appetite for the housing piece. And so we've had some dialogue with Miami-Dade County's consultant for the CARES Act program piece to determine what should we do with the other half. But we have seen a large response in the community for the grocery gift card program, which was seen even or evident today. And the first time we did it in November, we had a large turnout as well. So we believe that maybe the best strategy for the city may be to transfer the money from the housing portion that's not being utilized over to the grocery gift card program. And that way we can funnel money to our community as opposed to going through the housing piece, which may not give people a lot of time to be able to submit in time by December 30th. The federal government has not extended the deadline, so everything needs to be submitted by December 30th as of today. So that is the end of my presentation. I'll take any questions that you may have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Lazier. Any questions or comments, Ms. Lazier? Commissioner Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the mayor to Mrs. Lazier, thank you as always for providing such an in-depth presentation on our audits and our financial position. As it relates to the CARES Act funding, the 2.1 million for Miami-Dade County, I'm glad to see that we are exploring options to reallocate that funding. I know that we have pretty much a short turnaround being awarded the money in November and then having to pretty much spend at the end of this calendar year. It must be, a yeoman's task. So props to you and the city staff for taking that on. So I guess we are looking at ways to, reallocate that and push that to the grocery or gift.
Well, yeah, they
portion.
actually called us or sent an email yesterday because they were concerned. They were concerned that we had not received enough applications on the housing side. So we've received about 90 applications on the housing side from the city of Opa-locka, while they have other cities that may have submitted up to 400 or 500 applications. And the problem with that is only 30% of them actually make it. So out of the 90, maybe only 30 may get the housing money. And so if we leave it in that pot, the county will end up just taking the monies that we don't spend. But with one of the things that we've seen with the grocery gift card, we initially had it at $250 up to $250 for the grocery gift card. And we spoke with them and we said, okay, well, if we're not doing well on the housing side, can we increase it to 500? So they allowed us to increase it to 500, which means we're giving each household a little bit more. And we're also recommending to them to allow us to transfer it over to the gift card portion. I know we've spoken through the manager's office to see if that's something that they would like, but that's a suggestion, and that's what I would recommend. I would recommend that we spend the additional monies through the grocery gift card program, which is garnering a lot of support here in the community. I mean, I think we've purchased about 900 90,000 in grocery gift cards between Winn-Dixie and Publix. We've dispersed about maybe half of it so far, I'd say. We're waiting for the additional gift cards to come in. So if we make that decision, we would order another million and try to give that over the next 2 weeks before December the 30th.
Okay, and that would be great. And just to say, the need for housing, I think it's kind of passed. If you look at March of this year, we've been fighting us in the city for this funding for quite some time. In Miami-Dade County, for reasons of his own, decided to hold on to this money and then give it to us, a month pretty much before it's slated to be returned back to the federal government. So, again, props to you guys. I know the need has been there. Many of our residents have been unemployed as well as unemployed and underemployed. So we definitely want to, definitely want to acknowledge, that we did have that need in our community. And maybe there are some challenges as it relates to barriers to applications and providing certain documents to be able to acquire those funds. So it'd be great, to see that money shifted around and, move to another need such as the grocery.
For sure,
program.
for sure. And the manager's office has been tremendous in this whole effort. So definitely appreciate all of their support.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Yeah.
Commissioner Taylor.
Ms. Lizzie, how are you?
I'm well, and yourself? Good to see you again.
I do have a question. You said that, let's just say if they do allow you to shift the monies to the grocery side, and they told you that we're not allowed to actually extend it past the 30th, right?
The federal government hasn't done that. So,
Okay. But
yes.
if you were to purchase the second half of the gift cards, would you have to give them back? Or can you still disperse them after the 30th?
No, we got to do it by the 30th.
You gotta give it back. Okay.
And if you notice on the application that we uploaded last week, Mr. Nelson uploaded, we actually provided dates. So now we're doing Wednesday through Saturday. This week, we're doing Wednesday through Friday, and we may add additional dates if needed up until the 30th to be able to disperse the card. So it's just about people going online, getting the application. We've also changed the process from an affidavit to an application to one form. Previously, they were required to get it notarized. We were able to work through, a lot of the cities were complaining that their residents were all having a tough time with the fact that they were requesting it to be notarized. So they switched that and they changed that. And so we no longer require that. And so that was a barrier, right? So now we're pushing it out a little bit quicker.
Is there a max on how many cards a citizen can receive?
That's correct. One gift card per household up to $500 per household.
So the ones that have already gotten the 500 are not allowed to come back for the second?
That's correct.
Got it.
And it's one household. So
One household.
two people in the same house can't come
do
to
it
get the
that way.
gift card. It has to be one household.
Through the mayor. Thank you, Ms.
Vice Mayor.
Lazier. How are you?
I'm well, and yourself?
Great. Thank you so much for the presentation. I can tell you, presenting myself ongoing, anyone that can stand up and present what you did off cuff, kudos to you, just knowing the finances and on the audit side of Opa-locka. I would like for Mr. Ellis, if we can get this presentation on our website,
Okay.
along with all the presentations that were presented today.
No problem.
I think that the citizens need to know that we are moving forward and just on the good things that are happening and how we are, moving into better territory. I would also, Ms. Lazier, request if I could, if possible, if I can have a visual
I can
of
put that
what,
in.
of all that you presented today. That would be great so that we can place on the city's website. But again, thank you.
Okay, no problem. I will put that together. We just found out about the meeting yesterday, so
No, of course,
trying to
no.
put this together. I figured it was just easier for me to kind of go this way,
It
but I'll
is.
put something together to present to you guys as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lazier. To note, Tri-Merge CPA, who Ms. Lazier represents, has been literally the foundation of us moving out of this financial crisis and getting our audits done. As many of you are aware, there was talk in the state about dissolving the city earlier this year. And the three levers that they use against us is that we were behind in our audits. Number one, we did not submit our 5-year recovery plan, and we also have an outstanding operational audit with over 99 findings. Ms. Lazier has worked diligently to get those audits done. We are still behind one audit, and by the time that we get that one done, we may be behind on the second, another audit. So the highest priority right now of this government is to get those audits done, and Ms. Lazier is leading that up. But also, since both of them, Ms. Lazier and also Mr. Anathan, presented, Mr. Anathan was the foundation of making sure that we got our 5-year recovery plan submitted, which is a huge accomplishment that helped us to be a little more solid. So this is a very important conversation. And I think the most important thing that we need to focus on as a city, outside of making sure this audit is complete, is the renegotiation of our debt. Ms. Lazier, how much in debt service based upon MDC and it doesn't matter because the only one we're paying right now is Miami-Dade County. How much debt service do we pay on the annual basis to them?
I think the payment is about 100,000, 190. So 190 times 12, 1.2 million.
Exactly.
And
So-
some of that is principal, some of that is interest.
Exactly. So
3% interest.
that's on the 5.5. We still have 2.5 outstanding with the county and also another 2.2 minimum with the state. You can imagine in terms of debt service, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars that can be allocated to infrastructure projects, can be allocated to parks programming if we're able to renegotiate that debt and also settle that debt. So it's very important that we tackle that as a commission so that we can bring more revenue to this city and that we can utilize to bring the change that we all fought for. So thank you, Ms. Lazier, for your work and your time. If there's any other questions or comments?
I just want to say that the audit process is not just myself, it's also the entire finance department, it's entire city, all the directors play a huge part in putting the audit together as well as the manager's office. So it's a team effort by the entire city.
Thank
All
you.
right.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that and the whole finance department. So with that, we are getting close to our regular commission meeting. And I would like to wrap this up. Are there any final comments or thoughts?
Yeah, I just like to
Mr.
say,
Manager?
yes, sir. I'd like to say thank you to all the directors for doing their presentations today and working under the leadership of our manager, Mr. Pate, who's kind of much leading us. He has a philosophy of team Opa-locka, that we work together as a team to get some of the things accomplished within the city, and that the commission has directed us to do so. So I just want to thank them, and I want to thank the commission for allowing us the opportunity to make this presentation today. And we look forward to having a very successful new year, going into the new year 2021.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Manager. Anyone else? All right. Thank all those involved in this presentation. This is one of a few that we will have over the next coming weeks and months as we orient this new commission and create a strategic plan as we move forward as a city. So I want to thank everyone that's in here today, and please tune for those online. Please tune in for our regular commission meeting starting in a few minutes. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Commissioner Burke,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Davis. This meeting is adjourned.